So hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. I'm your host, Jeremy Hughes, and today we're joined by currently 5 classes from across North America. Hopefully we'll get our 6th in very shortly. I'm going to do a quick run through of the classes, and you guys can just wave your hands. I'll unmute your mics real quick so you can give a bit of a shout out. We have Mrs. Walek's class, grade 2, Arlington in the States. Welcome, guys. Very, very tame. Thank you very much. We have Mrs. Deschaines, grade 3 to 5. Welcome, guys. I like the enthusiasm. We're missing Mr. Fram's class, but hopefully they will join us momentarily. We have Miss Hawks, grade 3s from Bristol as well.
I'm Mr. Collins. Who's your grade? Mr. Collins. Mr. Collins.
We have Verbeek's class, grade 16, a little bit closer from London, Ontario. I don't know if they can yes. Oh, we just got in. This is Verbeek's class. Can you hear me? I think they're here. They just can't speak. And we have Mrs. Norris's class, who's also just joining us still. Oh, no, they're ready. So Mrs. Norris's class from Cambridge, Ontario, grade 5-6s. Make some noise.
One second.
I like it. Finishing strong. Welcome, everyone. So, of course, we have these wonderful classes lucky enough to join us today. But we're also very lucky to be joined by our speaker for today. And I'll just give you a bit of a spiel before revealing who she is first. So a native to the state of Maine, she has long since been passionate about the ocean, growing her childhood interests into thousands of fieldwork and dive hours with sharks all over the world. She is not only a marine biologist, but a shark conservationist, a freediver, a scuba instructor, an all-around lover of all things water. Man, am I jealous. Of course, she's the brave-hearted explorer and also an educator as the founder of Sharks for Kids, a U.S. nonprofit that aims to create the next generation of shark advocates through education, outreach, and adventure. Who is she? Jillian Morris. Please welcome her with a big round of applause, and I'll pass the stage over to you, Jillian.
Wow. Well, thank you guys. I'm so excited to be here today and talk a little bit about some of the work that I do. I'm talking to you guys from Bimini in the Bahamas. It's a tiny little island about 50 miles from the U.S. state of Florida, so not so far from the U.S. And the reason I live here is because there's lots of sharks. It's a great place to swim with them, study them, photograph and film them. I do a lot of things, as Jeremy mentioned, so I'm involved in a lot of different shark activities, but today I really want to talk to you about shark tagging. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we do it, some of the equipment we use, and why we do it. Why do we catch and tag these animals? What are we learning? What are our goals? And why is it important? So I'm going to go ahead and start. I just want to make sure, if you could just let me know, make sure the screen comes up correctly. Let's see. And all right. Are we good? Can you still hear me, Jeremy?
Yep, I can hear you and see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. So just a little bit about the how, the what, and the why of shark science. And the animal I'm going to talk a lot about today is this one, the tiger shark, because I'm currently working on a tagging project in the Dutch Caribbean and looking at specifically this species. So they're one of my favorites. It's really interesting, and so they'll be the one I talk about most today. Now, I do a lot of other things, as I mentioned, photographing and filming sharks, diving with them, and teaching students all over the world about sharks through Sharks for Kids, just like I'm talking to you today. So it's a lot of fun. I'm really lucky. I love working with sharks in all different capacities. And these are just some other photos to kind of show a little bit of my life with sharks. Because when people say they work with sharks, it can mean a lot of different things, but for me, this is really what it looks like most of the time. So you can see it's pretty fun, it's different, it's interesting, different species, and different ways to work with them. All right, so how do we learn about sharks? There's a lot of different things that we can do, and even you guys. So if you go to an aquarium, or you find a great book at the library, or if you get a chance to go to the ocean, maybe you got to snorkel or visit a place that you can see sharks. All of those are wonderful opportunities to learn about these animals. Observing them, reading interesting facts about them, maybe watching a really cool TV show or DVD about sharks. So there's all these amazing things that all of us can do. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that I'm involved with for learning about sharks. Now, one of the things we get to do, just a quick, is dive with sharks. So this is, I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit. This is a great hammerhead shark. We're really lucky in Bimini where I live that this time of year they migrate, they travel to this area, and we can spend some time with them. So this is just a quick video to show you how big they are and how close they get when we're underwater taking photos and videos of them. So you can see I've got a camera. That's all my scuba diving gear, which lets me breathe underwater, so I can hang out down there and learn about sharks. You can just see how big they are, how close they get. Not aggressive, just cruising through, and we're able to spend some time with them and have really amazing moments. And this is a big, beautiful tiger shark coming right up to the camera. The camera's in a special case that keeps it dry and safe. Again, I've got my scuba diving equipment on. Taking photos and videos is a way to observe the animals, to identify individuals, because we don't necessarily name them Steve or Bob or Sue. We can identify them through different characteristics, features, and it helps us understand which animals are in the area, how much time they spend there. So it's really a great tool. Again, taking some more photos. This is a juvenile lemon shark. It's the little guy in the mangroves. We can look at the habitats they're using, how they're spending their time, who they're hanging out with. Maybe they have friends like these little guys have. So that's just kind of one part of learning about sharks. Now, another part that I'm really going to focus on is tagging. So this is a very basic drawing of one of the types of equipment we use called a drum line. So there's a weight on the bottom, a buoy on the top that floats at the surface, and some bait. And we put these in the water, and there's a long piece of line. As you can see that the bait is on that fish. This allows sharks to keep swimming. Many species have to keep moving forward, things like great whites and hammerheads, in order to get the water to come in their mouth to pass over their gills. So all of the equipment that's been designed and is used all over the world by scientists is keeping in mind how to minimize the stress. We don't want to hurt the animals. We don't want to stress them out. How do we make this as easy as possible? We do it really quickly, and this is part of that. It allows the sharks to keep swimming, right? Which is really important. If they couldn't swim, stress out, and they could even die. And we do not want to cause that. So we want the equipment to be able to move with the animal and make the whole process much easier. So we have that. We throw it in the ocean. So you can see there we've got some bait. If you guys have been fishing before, it's kind of the same thing. It's just a different style of equipment, right? You might have used a rod and a reel with a hook and a worm or a piece of bait. Same kind of thing, just slightly different equipment. It's a bit bigger, designed for some bigger animals in this situation. Now, once we have a shark, so we pull our line up, we have a shark, we bring it next to the boat, and we're going to do what's called a workup. And you can think of this as being kind of like when you go to the doctor and you get a physical or a checkup. So there's certain data or information we're going to collect about the shark, like what the doctor sees about you. Right, so we have a black tip next to the boat on the right, and we have a little lemon shark that we've actually brought into the boat, into this tub of water on the left. Lemon sharks can buccal pump. They can actually suck the water in, so they do not have to move in order to breathe. So we're able to do this, and it actually makes it a lot easier on a smaller animal than leaving them on the side of the boat. Right, and the first thing we're going to do is once the animal is secured, so even though you can't see it, there's a line and a hook from the bull shark's mouth, and it also has a rope around its tail. Right? the tail rope, and it's keeping that animal right next to the boat. We don't want it to thrash around, to be able to hurt itself or maybe hit us. We want to keep it as comfortable as possible. Right? So this is the bull shark. It's next to the boat, and we're going to measure it. So we take 3 length measurements from most sharks. Tip of the nose to the tip of the tail, that's the total length. Tip of the nose to the start of the tail, this is the pre-caudal length. This is the caudal fin, so the pre-caudal. And then the tip of the nose to the fork in the tail. Now something like a nurse shark doesn't actually have the bottom part, so we don't take that measurement. We might also measure around the shark, its girth, to see how thick around it is. Right, so 3 measurements, really important. The total length can help us estimate about how much the shark weighs. In this particular case, that shark is way too big to bring into the boat. So we can figure out about how much it weighs based on other sharks we've caught. And we can do an estimate of the age. Right? We know they're born at a certain size, they grow at a certain rate. So we can use some math. So if you're interested in marine science, math is really important, and figure out about how old this shark is. Next thing we're going to do is take a small tissue sample. It's like clipping your fingernails, right? So we're actually going to take a little piece of tissue from the shark's dorsal fin. And we put it in a little jar, as you can see there. It's probably about the size of your thumbnail. It's not very much. And they don't feel it. It's like clipping your fingernails. And we send that off to a lab. So this tells us some really interesting things about the shark. For one, it just gives us its DNA identification. It's unique genetic code, okay? This is an individual, sort of like a fingerprint, right? It also can tell us a family tree. Maybe we caught their mom before, or their dad, or their brothers or sisters. Families don't stay together, so this helps us to see if they're actually in the same area, or if they're coming back, or to understand a full kind of family tree of the animals we've caught. So if you guys have done a family tree before, like seeing grandma, great-grandma, kind of like that. The last thing is, it can actually help us understand something called stable isotopes. And what that really is it's, if somebody's ever said to you, you are what you eat, this applies to sharks as well. So that skin, little piece of tissue, can help us see what they've been eating. Kind of like what the shark's favorite restaurant is. Have they been hanging out on coral reefs or seagrass beds? Really helps us understand the role this animal plays in that ecosystem. Because sharks are not always on the top of the food chain. So if we want to understand where they exist, kind of the role they're playing, this is a really important piece of information. Now, before we release the shark, we're going to tag it. This first tag is a pit tag, and if any of you have a pet at home that's microchipped, this is the same exact thing your cat or dog would have in case they get lost. So we make a small incision, and you can see the needle there. We just inject it under the skin, and we use a scanner that passes along. If it beeps, that number will come up. Like you can see that scanner in the top right. And that's an ID. It's sort of an internal barcode for the shark. When you go to the store and your items beep over the register and a price comes up, sort of that black and white line design on the back, this is the same thing for sharks. It's a barcode. It's a very easy way for us to give them an ID. The next type of tag we use is a cattle tag or a roto tag. And you might have seen this on the ear of a cow or a pig. Now, sharks do have ears, but they're inside. They don't have that outside part like we do. So it'd be very difficult to pierce that, and we wouldn't be able to see the tag. So this roto tag, right, it's just like a fin piercing, has very basic information, a phone number, who's doing the study, and information for if someone catches that shark or sees that shark, they can get in contact with the people who put the tag on. And you can see there's different colored tags. Now for these, we really have to see the shark again, or at least catch them again. We can measure them, or maybe see them in a different area to learn about their movements and growth rates. Again, it's a pretty basic tag, very small, fairly inexpensive. Moving up, the next tag we have is an acoustic tag. Acoustic because it makes a noise. So this is a little tiger shark that we eventually brought into the boat because it can be very difficult to work with little sharks on the side of the boat. And this acoustic tag can go on the outside or the inside, and it has this unique ringtone, this sound that different devices can pick up. So we can actually make an incision on the shark right there. We can slide this in, we cut a couple stitches, and the shark will swim on its way. Now, you can see this tiger shark's upside down in tonic immobility, right? This kind of is a natural anesthetic. We can perform surgery on the shark. It's not moving, it's not feeling it. Put this in, stitch them up, flip them over, and they swim on their way. And these can last up to 10 years and give us a lot of interesting data about the movement patterns of the shark. So in order to use those tags, we have to have some listening devices. This receiver is a big underwater ear that listens only for these type of tags. They give off that unique ringtone. It's beeps. It's not like a musical tune, which would be kind of cool, but it's just a series of different beeps. And this shark will swim by, and that mini computer inside there, believe it or not, will record the time, the temperature, the animal, and the date. Right? So it gives us an idea of which animals are hanging out, how long they're spending there, maybe if they're hanging out with their friends, the same animals. So it can actually tell us a lot, but we need that tagged animal to be in an area with one of these receivers, right? And it can be anywhere from 300 feet up to about 1,500 feet, depending on the receiver and the tag. How close the shark or fish or whatever animal has that tag has to be for that receiver to hear that ringtone. You can also track it, right? So we see here, this is a hydrophone, another big underwater ear. So if the shark is swimming, you can actually follow the beeps using that. And a lot of the work that's done here in Bimini by the Bimini Biological Field Station, the Shark Lab, involves tracking the little lemon sharks to see where they're going, what habitats they're using, and kind of their behavior, where they're spending their time. Really interesting to do using these hydrophones and those acoustic tags. Right. And the last tag, you'll notice, is quite a bit bigger and has got a lot more parts to it. So this is a satellite tag. This is a spot tag, right? And it's got a mini computer. It's this waterproof case, and there's batteries. This one's designed to last about 4 years. We attach it to the fin of the shark, and it's sort of like strapping an iPhone to a shark, right? So you put this on there, and when the shark's fin sticks up out of the water, that antenna transmits a signal up to a satellite, and we get an email from our shark. Right? Technology is pretty amazing. Our sharks are emailing us to tell us where they are. So it allows us to see the movement of these animals. Where are they going? Right? Because we couldn't follow a big tiger shark might swim thousands of miles. It'd be very difficult for us to follow them in a boat or underwater if they dive really deep. So you can see we lean over. We're attaching the fin here on this tiger shark next to the boat. And this is just showing a smaller tiger shark. You can see the beautiful markings that they get their name from. And this is just a short video that kind of runs through the whole process of what it looks. This is a video that shows the work we're doing in St. Martin with the St. Martin Nature Foundation and the Save Our Sharks project. So if you watch, just kind of goes through the whole process of catching and putting one of these tags on. So we have the big boat, we stay on, and then we go out in a smaller boat. There are lines, those buoys, and hopefully there's an animal on the end. So pull the lines in, and first thing is secure that shark next to the boat. You can see this is a very large tiger shark. So the team works together really efficiently, very quickly, 7 to 10 minutes to collect all that data, put that tag on, and let that shark go. We do this as quick as possible because we want to get that animal on its way again. You can see the animal's there. It's not thrashing around. There's the tail rope I mentioned, securing the shark next to the boat. Measuring, just measuring tape like you might have at home. Writing down all the data, the information, so we make sure we have it. And then once the shark is tagged, we've collected all the data, we release the animal. And there she goes with her tag. And this particular female was tagged in October 2016, and she's still sending us lots of data, lots of emails, which is really cool. Now this is a track. So this is what it looks like. This is what we get from the shark. So this green dot shows when the shark was tagged, right? And every green dot after is when that shark's dorsal fin stuck up and that tag transmitted to a satellite. Just like on your phone, if you get directions or you're following the GPS to figure out where you're going, or mom and dad have done that, this is the same thing, right? That's why it's kind of like a phone. So you can see she spent a lot of time up at the surface, and then she's traveling further and further away from the spot we tagged her. So every one of these dots, again, is when that animal is at the surface. And this just shows us a few months of her track. And we'll look at these over the Google Earth maps to kind of understand where they're going, where they're spending their time. And then we can start to ask questions like, why? Why is that shark going there? Why is it spending its time? All right, let me just stop the screen share. Wrap up. Did the screen share stop? Yeah? Okay, perfect. Just making sure. So we do all of this because we want to understand sharks. Unfortunately, humans are killing about 100 million sharks every single year. Your screen sharing. Nope, there we go. Stop, cancel. Okay, perfect. All right, so humans are killing a lot of sharks. And in order to change that and put better protections in place, we have to have data. We have to have facts about these animals. We can't simply go to a government and say, oh, I love sharks, please save them. We have to say, okay, this is an important nursery area. This is an important mating area, right? We have to kind of tell them why these particular areas are important for these animals as they're migrating through, or even if it's a shark that doesn't migrate, what's happening in that area? And it helps us understand where they go, the habitats they use, the food they eat. And no matter what type of animal we're trying to protect, in order to do that and get laws put in place, we have to know about them, whether they live on land or in the ocean. We have to have this information in order to be able to get those protections to happen. So the science is really needed for conservation. It's really important. This is just one kind of aspect of the work that's being done all over the world to try and protect these animals, especially species of sharks that are threatened with extinction, which unfortunately is about 25% of them. Right? So it's really, really important work, and this is kind of the why we do it and the how we do some of it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that talk, Jillian. I've even learned something.
Oh, very cool.
Plenty myself. And now that we have some time, we're going to open the floor up to questions from our classrooms. So I'm going to go to Miss Rita Norris's grade 5/6s in Cambridge first. You're going to unmute your mic. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to come right up and ask Jillian.
Can you hear us?
Yep, go right ahead, guys.
I've got Aiden that's going to come and ask his first question.
Okay, go ahead, Aiden.
A lot of people in our classroom right now.
No problem.
We've opened this up to another class, so we've got 2 classes.
Great, the more the merrier. Thank you.
So Aiden, look right into the screen and ask your question.
Would you rather swim with a black tip reef shark or a white tip reef shark?
Oh, well, I've been lucky enough to swim with both of those. They're really amazing, but I love the way the white tips will sit on the bottom and they just kind of open and close their mouth. There's a great video the BBC did, and they kind of put a voiceover to that, like they were singing, and they're all kind of snuggled in together, opening and closing their mouths, and it's pretty funny. So I really, really enjoy them, just their kind of their faces and sort of the comical value. But I've been lucky enough to see both of those on dives.
Awesome, thank you.
You guys have another question or two? You can ask them away.
I'm gonna go, Brooke, if you have a question. Those are your list of questions, Brooke. You're sitting in the chair.
Oh, whoa. Okay, so what inspired you to learn about sharks?
I was really lucky. I actually snorkeled with my first shark when I was 8 or 9 years old. My family had gone to Florida, and it was a nurse shark. I love nurse sharks. They're maybe not the most exciting, but I love them. And I was just fascinated. I loved all ocean animals, but it was it was something I hadn't seen before. So I started learning about them. And as I got older and learned more, I realized that people don't like sharks. And they were saying that they were aggressive and terrifying and man-eaters. And that wasn't my experience at all. So I think it just really kind of my personal experience versus what sort of the media or other people were saying was very different. So it inspired me to tell their story, to tell what I was seeing and learning and knowing and share these facts. And that kind of led to marine biology and diving, and then starting Sharks for Kids to teach students the facts, the reality about sharks. They're not monsters. They're really incredible animals.
Okay, thank you.
And we have 2 more questions here.
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, this is Jack. Jack's got a question.
Have you ever gotten injured doing research on any sharks?
Well, there's always injuries that can happen when you work on boats in general. I've gotten lots of bruises, falling over, a big wave hits the boat, you fall over and you get bruised. The only time I've ever had a shark injury, I've never been bitten. I've never had one try and bite me, but I did have a tiger shark as we were getting it secured next to the boat. They have a pretty large tail, and it kind of went like that with its tail and came right up and hit me right in the face really hard and went down. And their skin is actually made of microscopic teeth called dermal denticles. So imagine kind of something hitting you that feels like sandpaper and dragging down your face. And so that left a pretty good mark, but that's the only injury. And the shark wasn't trying to hurt me. It wasn't attacking. It was trying to get away because we can't really explain what we're doing. So, but other than some bumps and bruises, falling around on a boat, I've never had a serious injury. Knock on wood. Okay. Oh, and now my dog's gonna bark. Sorry, guys. It's okay. No one's here. No one's here. It's okay.
Question.
Hey, come on. You're pretty.
Okay, be quiet, guys.
What are some of the places that have the most endangered sharks?
So there are endangered species all over the world. Sharks are found in every single ocean, but obviously if you have certain areas with more sharks, there's a higher percentage that may be endangered. Here in the Bahamas, the great hammerheads we have are listed as an endangered species. We also have the very rare sawfish, which is technically a ray, a flattened shark, and they're critically endangered. They're actually the most endangered marine fishes in the world. Very, very rare to see. So it really just depends on the area, but places like Africa, South Africa, the Bahamas, with kind of higher concentrations of different types of sharks or shark diversity, you'll tend to find species that are endangered there as well.
Awesome. Thanks for those questions, Ms. Rita Norris's
Great
class.
question.
We're going to move on to Mrs. DeShane's class.
Hey.
You guys have any questions? They're joining us from Bristol.
Say hi.
Hi, my name is Max, and I want to know what's the coolest shark that you ever saw.
I have to say, hammerheads are just amazing. They've got that giant head, the cephalofoil, all right, that with those eyes out on the side, and they cruise in, and they can use that head. It's a super center. It's got all these sensory cells on it, and they can use it to pin down stingrays, which they love to eat. So I just think they're incredible, and they look so different than other sharks. So they're by far my favorite animal, and definitely I think the coolest ones I've seen.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Aurora. How many sharks have you saved this year so far?
Well, it's hard to say. Like sometimes we physically help sharks, like we might pull a hook out or we might get trash off the sharks. But I kind of consider, well, saving sharks is teaching other students just like yourselves about how you can help them. Making choices too, if you went out fishing, maybe letting the shark go or not buying things made from shark. So hopefully in that way, by teaching people that they're not monsters and they're really important for healthy oceans, we're saving lots of sharks, all of us together.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more. Okay.
Hi, my name is Arnav, and why do people kill sharks?
So people kill sharks for a few different reasons. Sometimes they're afraid of them. They don't like them. They also eat shark. The fins are used to make a soup. Different other parts of their body, from oil from their liver is used to make lipstick, lotion, makeup. So a lot of parts of their body are used to make products. That's why people kill them, for the products and also because they're afraid or they don't like them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great suite of questions there, guys. Thanks very much. And all the more important for an organization like Sharks for Kids to bring awareness to shark finning. So we're going to move on to Miss Walek's class. If you guys have any questions, Miss Walek's class are grade 2s from Arlington.
Step back a little bit or bend down.
What is the deepest habitat for a shark, and what is the deepest you have ever been in the ocean?
So I have not actually been that deep. I've been to about 200 feet, but sharks live a lot deeper than that. All right, so there's a lot of species of deep sea sharks found thousands of feet deep. And the cool thing about the deep sea sharks are we're always learning new things. New species are being discovered every year, and a lot of them are deep sea sharks. Whether people are observing them on ROVs, those remote underwater video systems, submarines, or sometimes they come up in fishing nets, and scientists are able to look at them. But they have some cool features like glow-in-the-dark bellies. The velvet belly lantern shark's probably one of my favorites. All right, so when you guys go outside at night and you turn a porch light on or a street light, have you ever seen bugs kind of flying around that? Yeah. Right? So if you're a little shark and you've got this way to emit light from your belly, it's going to attract organisms, all right? And so it makes it easier to get food. So they have some really cool adaptations, things they can do or features to help them survive because it's a much more challenging world in the deep sea. No light in some parts or very little light, less organisms. So they have to adapt to that to be able to survive, which I think is fascinating. And they're probably, as a whole, deep sea sharks are sort of where I'm really interested in always wanting to learn more about them. Great question.
We have one more.
How does the shark scales work?
So, as they swim along, okay, sorry, Monty's a little tired here. He's old. So the water comes in the mouth, and then these are not actually the gills that you see here. These are the gill slits. These are the openings. So the gills are under there. The water passes along, right, and they're able to pull out the oxygen, just like we go and we get oxygen in the breath we take in. And then they can transport that in the blood through the rest of the body. And then the water spits out. It's kind of like a filter system. So if you're a great white and you have to keep swimming, whereas something like a nurse shark has these really strong, these buccal muscles that actually can kind of suck the water in and force it over the gills. So they can actually sit right on the bottom and don't have to swim to breathe.
Let's say thank you.
Thank you.
Great questions, guys. So we're going to go on to Mrs. Hawk's class. Mrs. Hawk, also from Bristol.
Go ahead. There you go. Go ahead.
Have you ever seen a shark in person?
I see them all the time. I see them almost every day. So as you saw some of those videos and stuff, that was me doing the tagging and working with them. So I'm really lucky. I see sharks almost every day, whether either just outside in the marina where I live or diving with them, catching and tagging them, photographing them. So I'm very lucky to see sharks almost every day.
Thank you. How long do you usually go underwater?
Well, it depends. So if you guys have ever jumped kind of into a swimming pool before and dived down and your ears start to feel a bit of pressure and kind of feels like your face, right? That happens the deeper we go in the ocean. And so we have a tank of air, right? So we have this underwater backpack with our tank of air, our scuba equipment, and the deeper you go, pressure kind of compresses that air. So the deeper we go, the less time we have. But if I'm diving with the hammerheads, it's only about 20 to 30 feet deep. So sometimes I'm down there for 90 minutes, an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending. So it's pretty shallow. So that's probably the longest I would dive is 90 minutes to 2 hours. Then I might start to get a little cold or hungry, so they don't come up. But about 90 minutes to 2 hours. Now, if I'm going deeper, I have less time than that.
Okay, thank you.
If you guys have any last questions, you can ask Jillian. This is Hawk's class.
Yep. One more.
What's the biggest shark you caught?
The biggest shark I've ever caught and tagged was probably about a 14, pretty close to 15-foot tiger shark when I was working in Australia. So that's a big animal, and they're also pretty wide. She was a big, beautiful animal. So that's about the biggest that I've caught and tagged. I've seen bigger just diving and swimming, but that's about the biggest that I've actually worked with and done the tagging on.
Thank you. Can you ever train a shark to do a certain thing?
You absolutely can. People think sharks are not intelligent. Wrong. All right, they've been taught to push buttons, open boxes. When you go to aquariums, sometimes they'll be target trained. So there'll be a certain color and the shark will swim up to touch the target in order to get its food. They've been taught to recognize different shapes and to be able to remember that. And when they learn something, they can actually teach their buddies, which is pretty interesting. All right,
Wow.
So they're really intelligent. Yeah, far more intelligent than people give them credit for.
Thank you.
Great, thanks for those questions, Miss Hawk's class. So we're gonna go on to Miss Verbeek's class. We hope that you guys have audio. If you can hear me, you have the floor for questions. I'm also gonna try to get a hold of you on the chat, or if you're watching on YouTube Live, you can post a comment, and I can relay the question that way. I don't think they can get sound to us, so unfortunately we're gonna have to skip any questions they have, but we might send them your way, Jillian, later through email.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if that is all for questions, we're gonna give a big thank you to Jillian Morris for joining us today, the founder of Sharks for Kids, which you can go check out on Twitter and on our website, and as well, of course, for all the classrooms for joining us from across North America. As is explained by the tradition, we'll open the mics up and everyone can get up and make lots of noise. And just a final reminder for those still tuning in, all the rest of February is dedicated to amazing women in science, conservation, technology, writing, you name it. So please join in for our future.